Welcome to Hagerstown Forward, a podcast where we highlight the people and issues that bring Hagerstown forward. We are Magnus and Marie Dahlgren, your hosts. In this episode, we talk to Greg Snook. Greg has made a career of community involvement, formerly as a county commissioner for 16 years, and currently as CEO of the Hagerstown-Washington County Industrial Foundation, as well as being partner in the Hager 5 LLC group, which is working on projects that will benefit the core of Hagerstown. And now, here's our conversation with Greg Snook.
How would you like to be introduced?
Just as Greg Snook. I'm not very formal, but Greg would be fine.
Okay. And Greg, what does Greg do?
Right now, Greg is part of a group called Hager 5 LLC, and I have two partners. That is Paul Crampton and John Barr. And what we have tried to do is work on several projects in the downtown core to benefit the city of Hagerstown and, of course, Washington County. We started our project about 2 years ago when we purchased our first property on West Washington Street, and we have continued to purchase properties both on West Washington Street, some on Antietam Street, and just recently on North Potomac Street. So what our goal is to try and take these properties, renovate them, and bring new either jobs and or just foot traffic down into the downtown core. So our very first project was February of last year, and we purchased the Columbia Bank at 8183 West Washington Street. And basically the bank was downsizing, so we took the rest of that space, renovated it, and then have started to backfill all the space that the bank vacated. So currently we have the Public Defender's Office for the state of Maryland in there. We also were excited about having United Way of Washington County move into that space. Also, they have some small offices and a little conference room. And we just recently signed a temporary contract with both Callis Contractors and Morgan Keller Contractors, who are the contractors doing the work on the Maryland Theater and the Barbara Ingram School for the school board. So that building is almost full. At the same time, that purchase, we also came with it was the East Antietam Street parking lot, and there's about 100 spaces on that parking lot. So we have always felt that if you want to try and do some development in downtown, you have to have convenient parking for both your customers and your employees. So when we do a lease with some private entity, we try and also market having spaces, just right out your back door that you don't have to walk very far, make it convenient for them. So that has been a good marketing tool for that. The very next property beside that was purchased also, and that is the old Susquehanna Bank building. And we are currently working with the University of Maryland on renovating that and trying to sign a lease for them to bring a new program in here that relates to hospitality. Those students would probably start sometime next year if we're successful in getting that lease. I actually have some renderings on the audio, probably don't, but that's the layout, and then just what the inside's going to be looking at. Okay. This is for students coming in that want to get into the food and beverage or even the hotel business, which tourism in this area is big. So yes. We're excited about that. And then
And for our listeners, we're looking at plans and renderings and drawings of the
University of Maryland.
University of Maryland. And it looks like a modern facility with amenities.
Yes. some of the facilities downtown have no sprinkler systems, have no elevators, and some of them don't even have steps, that meet the current codes. You have the small hallways, and of course you have to bring it up all the current standards. And that's really what it is. You have to have a plan and be able to plan ahead. So then, just last fall, we submitted a request to purchase another building from the city of Hagerstown, which is, I call the old B company, Potomac B one at 4953 West Washington Street. 4-story building. Right now we only have a tenant in the first floor, but there are no steps, no elevator, no sprinkler system in the rest of the building. So I presented a plan to City Council saying, here's what we would like to do with the building, and I would purchase it. We actually bought the building for $150,000, but our estimates right now on what we will take to put up and bring it up to code is probably about $500,000 per floor. So it's not cheap, but what you can do is you can budget that and then work back into that to try and take into account bringing tenants into downtown. I'm not trying to create a lot of any Class A office space. I think a Class B office space is what Hagerstown is suited for now. You have other Class A office space on the outskirts that other developers are working, but I want to make it affordable that we can still attract some small businesses and other types of companies that would be willing to come downtown and at a lesser rental rate than what they would be out in some of the industrial parks.
And just briefly for our listeners, Class A office space?
Class A is the highest, and I would say Class A is something above 18 to the low $20 a square foot. Class B is probably anywhere from 10 to 15, somewhere in that range, and then you have just typical warehouse, which would be a lot less.
Okay. It sounds like the properties you're developing are meant for organizations, offices, businesses. Are there any plans for residential development?
In that same plan that I presented to the City Council, the first and second floor of the B building would be commercial offices, and then the third and fourth floor we have proposals to develop into dorm space. Now we feel that will be a success once we get the university projects in hand. So University of Maryland is going to be starting this fall up off the old Walnut Street Center, a clinic there, and they're going to be bringing in students that are working for the physician's assistant program. So we're also trying to recruit new doctors into this area. So they're going to require a little bit type of different living space than a typical dorm, and we think that could be a possibility. With the expansion of what's going on with the university through its regular other programs, whether it's nursing or education, those students that cannot drive here every day, we think that that's a possibility. Now I'm talking in numbers of like 6 to 12 dorms, not 30, 40, or 50, because the demand is not there for that amount yet. But I think if we do it in small increments, and along with the city of Hagerstown has been a good partner in this, we think that we'll be able to make a little step forward in that direction. Once you get people here in downtown, I think they will start to use some of the other facilities, your restaurants, your small specialty stores, going to the theater a little bit more, that type of thing.
Yes, I was listening very carefully, and I have a question. What is your motivation to do this?
What is my motivation? Well, I've always wanted to give back to the community, but I'm looking at to try and set the bar for. I probably will not see a whole lot of return myself financially, but I'm hoping for the next generation to probably catch on a little bit more than what the current generation is, and we formed this LLC, and things are going fine now. I mean, it's carrying itself. So, we're looking at it as a business and trying to build the tax base here for the city of Hagerstown. So, twofold, to help the city and also help us, with our project as being developers.
That's great.
Could you please share your goals for the next 5 years, business and personal, or organizational and personal? Starting with either one.
Okay, sure. I would say business-wise, I hope to finish some of these projects that we have started and continue purchasing some other facilities here in the downtown core. Some of them will have to be demolished, but some of them can be fixed up. There is some very nice architecture here in the downtown core. We have another building right beside the B Company that we plan on demolishing because it's only 2 stories and it's in shape where you cannot renovate it. We've done structural analysis, so I would say the buildings of the 6 properties that we have purchased in the last year, that will keep us busy for the next several years, just developing that. The one we also purchased last year was the Antietam Paper Building on East Antietam Street, which is right beside the Cultural Trail. We feel that will be a positive influence and have people out and about walking up and down the trail. So we have about 22,000 square feet over there, and we think some type of either a restaurant or a commercial business on the first floor and having some type of loft apartments on the second floor, similar to like what we talked about with the dorms here for USM. Personal-wise, I was in politics for a long time. I'm not interested in getting back into politics, but I am on about 8 or 9 different boards and commissions. So I'm anywhere from Garrett County, Deep Creek Lake, down to State Highway in Hanover, and then serving on the Hagerstown Community College trustees. I'm currently vice chair now of Emeritus Medical Center. I sit on the bank board, Columbia Bank, down in Columbia, Maryland. I'm on the library board. I'm on a lot of boards, so I like donating my time, and I'm at a point in my career where I can do that.
Can I ask you, please, what's so important for you to contribute to the community beyond yourself?
My father taught me that. He was in public office for a long time, and it's just my upbringing, giving back to the community, because you never go wrong by giving. I mean, you always get something back many times over what you give, and so I've tried to teach my kids that, and hopefully that will perpetuate out, amongst other members of this community.
Thank you.
So, with that said, what would you say your passion is?
What my passion is?
Yes.
To see the communities have success. I think it's already started here in the downtown area. Next door to our office here is where they're going to be doubling the size of the Barbara Ingram School. That is through Bowman Development, and for the next 22 months, they'll be demoing a building and building a new 5-story building. So when that is finished, you're probably going to have 500 kids, high school age, here in this downtown core, looking at focusing on arts and entertainment, arts and dance, arts, all that. Maryland Theater, I mean, they're going to be working hand in hand and educating kids, but also bringing in more shows. So you're going to start to see a mini Frederick, I guess, I hope, because everyone compares us to Frederick. I mean, we have to be ourselves, but I think we have started with the Arts and Entertainment District. The city has a strategic plan that we're all trying to work in conjunction with. So I think that's a big start here for this year.
Okay, very good. Could you please share with us one personal habit or daily routine that contributes to your success?
I would say one of my personal routines is just having 15 minutes of quiet time to reflect on what has happened in the past day, what needs to happen today, and what might needs to happen tomorrow. I've always tried to be an organizer and plan, and willing to take risks, but I like to make sure I understand the ups and downs of what that risk may be. So I would just say contemplating and planning my days and reflecting on where I need to go.
From your perspective, what is the Hagerstown region's single biggest challenge or problem?
I would say education.
In what sense?
Well, I wear several hats, not only as a developer in downtown, but I see it from the college's perspective, and I also see it from a social perspective. In trying to attract new companies here into town, you have to have a workforce base that has enough education that can think, have problem-solving skills, be able to work with their hands, know right from wrong. Not everyone has to have a PhD or a 4-year degree, but they're looking for someone to have good work habits. And I think educating the community on that. I also sit on the Fletcher Foundation, and we have contributed several $100,000 to what they call the Bester Community of Hope project. And that is the children to go to Bester, making sure that they're taken care of both from a mental standpoint, healthy standpoint. If they're healthy, they can learn better. But it's also trying to connect with the families, the parents, trying to teach them what is right and wrong, help them with their parenting skills, bring them up in a better environment. From a college standpoint, all the trades, whether it's HVAC, whether it's solar, geothermal, just cybersecurity, nursing. The college develops these workforce training programs to help bring people up themselves. And if you can get a family with a little disposable income and be able to save some retirement, it makes them happier too.
And where do you feel we are with respect to our workforce?
I would say we still have more to go, but it's also having just the number of available people, because we do not have enough people just in the Hagerstown-Washington County area. We have lots of people coming from Pennsylvania and I'm from West Virginia to work here. So bringing them in the competition, with the other developing states always presents a challenge. So artificially, wages are going to increase for these people, but you also have to provide the job skills for them to continue.
Where do we go next? I think we covered some of the other
Important we covered what are the solution of the challenge of problem. You said the challenge is education. What are the ways to solve this challenge, to face it?
Well, what are the ways to solve it is one of the programs that Dr. Michael over at the Board of Education and Dr. Klauber, who's the new president out at HCC, they are working on a program to identify children in 9th or 10th grade on what their career paths should be before they graduate. And so what's happening is there's several programs to where either a student can get college credits towards a certificate of some type of specialty, like I mentioned, either a trade or something along that line. And so by the time they graduate, they could have a few credits, going into a trade school. There's also a program out there to where if the student follows it through as a senior in high school, they will be able to get enough college credits to get an associate's degree at the same time they get their graduation out of high school. So really what you're doing there is you're saving them basically 2 years of college, which helps the parents out because of the tuition. So it's identifying these kids early on that have a passion, have a desire of what they want to do, and it's amazing when you talk to these young students. I mean, there's a lot of them that have some ambitions that we can help with, and so those are two big programs that the Board of Ed and the college are working on. The county's also working with some of the other entities to try and develop programs specifically. If a company's coming into town, we can provide you with dollars to train some of your future employees. So there are several programs that the community has available to address that.
That's great.
As far as the companies bringing employees to town, what can we do to retain those employees so they don't just work here for a few years and then leave? Because there seems to be a lot of potential in the people that are coming from somewhere else.
Sure. 10, 15 years ago, if you looked at the demographics of this community, you had more people leaving the county going to work elsewhere. If you look at the demographics now, there are more people coming in to work here than there are leaving. That trend has changed. So if you can get a company in here that can provide a decent living for that employee, that's one big thing that I think he would prefer to stay. I've always looked at these people that drive up and down the road to D.C. or to Baltimore every day, and I say, God bless you, because I don't think I would do that. But what they're losing is their quality of life, and I think we have a lot to offer up here as far as quality of life that people don't see until they get into their working careers or have young families, and they say, well, I want to have my family here and not down the road where it's they're subject to other types of things. But I think we have a wonderful community that gives all the time, whether it's through education or whether it's through our churches, whether it's through just the community itself.
That's great. Yes, yes. The first time, to be honest, I have heard this information that more people choose to work here and to stay in Hagerstown area. That's very nice. That's good.
Yes, those demographics are, I think, come from the county analysis, and the state does that because when you file your tax returns, wherever you work at, say if you live here and work down the road, you're taxed, and that income tax money comes to Washington County. So if they live here, that's a benefit to us, even though they might work down the road.
Okay. I get the feeling that there's some inertia in the information that people take in, and they say, Hagerstown is such and such.
Yes.
And then you see something else where we're still living with the myth of, for example, people leaving. What are some other myths that are persistent? People come up to you, they talk to you, they say,
well, I think every community deals with what ifs. And I guess it's your philosophy, personal philosophy, whether you look at the glass, whether it's half empty or half full.
Yeah.
And you can live your life half empty or half full. And I think anyone that's experienced it will definitely tell you that if you have goals and objectives, both personal and professional, and you think of things more positively, then you will go and do a lot better in your life. And I think this community can help people do that. I never turn down a speaking engagement to leadership groups, whether it's Leadership Washington County, whether it's out at the college, or whether it's a social group, just to share what is going on, because some people get in their own little routines and their own little worlds. They have no idea what's going on outside. Especially some of the elderly population that don't have access to computers or don't look online and don't know what's going on the next street down, let alone in this community. So just being an advocate for the community is, I think, part of my goal in trying to stay as positive as possible as things occur.
You told just now about your goal. What is your mission?
My mission?
Mhm.
Same thing. Same thing. Make it a better place.
That's great. Thank you for having such a great mission.
Okay. Can you please share a story of a time in your journey when you experienced an aha moment of realization or revelation? When you come to the point where you go,
I would say it was more of a personal aha than a professional. Several months ago, I was driving through downtown, and I had my grandson in the car with me, 5 years old, actually 4 at the time, and we rode by the Maryland Theater. And he says, "Pappy," he says, "that's a place where they sing and dance." And so I didn't think a lot about it, but 2 weeks ago I sat down, and I also help fundraise.
Mhm.
So I sat down with the executive director at the Maryland Theater with a donor who was considering making a rather large donation, $1 million donation. And he says, "Why would I put my money in that?" I said, "Well, let me share a personal story." I said about my grandson seeing that, and I asked my grandson, I said, "Do you like it?" He says, "I like to sing." So that just kind of hit me and stuck with me, and I shared that with the donor. And I would say before we left lunch, we had that donation checked off. So, you know, it happens when you least expect it. You can't plan that stuff.
you have to be sensitive to it and it'll come to you.
Yes, exactly.
Do you believe in intuition?
Intuition? Probably a little bit, yes. Yeah. You know, I've always been a gut guy. You know, I go based off what my feelings are in my gut. You know, I've hired, you know, here again, I've been so fortunate over my career, you know, family businesses, you know, I was an elected official for 16 years as president of the county commissioners, and, you know, I've had to hire a lot of people and do a lot of things, and, you know, you could read stuff on paper, but I got to see the person. I got to be able to touch and feel and talk to them, and I get a sense of comfort after that. And I will say that I think my track record's fairly positive.
With that said, I wanted to get into the area where all of us experience failure at some point in your life. Could you share a time in your journey when you experienced failure, what you learned from it, or what positives came out of that?
You know, I don't consider things to be failures. I would say it's course corrections. And I don't ever consider anything being major to where I've reflected back and say, you know, I might not do that way again, but I would do it again, maybe just a different way. I honestly can't remember in my career where something has happened that I would say I would never ever do something like that again, but maybe do it differently.
That's great. I like this mindset.
What are some of the best things about the Hagerstown area, and how can we best use them to benefit Hagerstown?
Sure.
Things that you might not be involved in directly, but you
I think we have several shining star areas here in this community. One of them being the airport. I mean, the Washington County Regional Airport is a business hub. Has lots of employees. Right now, I mean, that is a big plus for this community. You have scheduled service in and out of here twice a week, tours. Our crossroads at 70 and 81 make us very appealing to people going up and down the interstate. Another thing that I think we can continue to tap into is children's sports. Families will do anything for their kids. They would take them on a long weekend baseball game, if they're involved in Little League All-Stars or lacrosse or soccer. And I think we can draw more families into this community by expanding on some of the facilities that we have, the Hagerstown Fairgrounds, the community college, even over at Municipal Stadium with the sports there. Our community college is actually larger now as far as students compared to Frostburg State. So there are a lot of kids going in and out, students, not kids, there are some of their older kids, but coming back for retraining. That is definitely a bright spot. And Magnus Hospital has done a lot to try and promote community health, as we talked earlier, to try and address some of the challenges here, whether it's the opioids or whether it's just, obesity or diabetes or whatever you want to talk about. So I think those in general are what we could focus on to attract and keep everything that we have here.
We know you're involved with Chief. What is Chief, briefly?
Sure. Chief is an acronym that was given to the organization. First of all, Chief has been in existence for almost about 60 years now. We are a 501c6, not-for-profit, and basically we deal in real estate. What we have tried to do over the last 60 years is work partnerships with both the city government, the county government, and the state to buy and sell real estate to bring jobs into this community. So the business parks that you see up and down the interstate, there's several in the Williamsport area, one out by Hagerstown Airport where Citicorp's at, and our latest project is Mount Etna Technology Park there between the college and Magnus Hospital. We basically buy and try and develop land in partnerships with the city and county to bring businesses here. We can do things that do not have to go through formal processes like a government would have to do. So we don't have to sell it at a high profit at the retail cost. We can do something at wholesale or just covering their cost. We do not receive any monies from any government to do that. So our operations are self-sufficient, and I have a board of directors. But our formal name is the Hagerstown-Washington County Industrial Expansion Foundation. So that started, like I said, close to 60 years ago. And I have actually moved our office into the downtown to show that we support what's going on with this downtown effort. But we have bought properties that, and people don't even see this. We bought the Hagerstown Fairgrounds. We held on to that for 5 years till the city was able to get enough money through different grants. We sold it right back to the city of Hagerstown for exactly what we paid for it. So now that's developed into a beautiful park system for that. We bought the property right beside the Maryland Theater, where the McBear's Pub, where that was the offices for the Maryland Theater. We gave it back to the Maryland Theater for basically $1 a year as long as they used it for the theater. So they just recently tore that building down as part of the expansion fund. So the downtown parking facility over here that the city uses, the past director went around and bought the backs of probably 25 different properties to develop that downtown parking lot. Our very first project back in the 60s was a group of business people put $100 in the pot. They got enough money to option land, and that's how Mack Trucks came into this community. That was our very first project, and it's been here ever since. It's changed names a couple times. Now it's Volvo, but that was our first big project. Citicorp, Rust-Oleum, all of those businesses were brought into this community through our organization.
Thank you.
These organizations that you're a member of, how do you make the decision to be a part of an organization?
Well,
how does that?
Here again, because of being in public office, I have probably been on almost every single board in this community that has a volunteer board. And when I retired from politics, I basically took a short time off and tried to focus on entities that could make a difference in this community. And like I I said, the college has been high on that list. The hospital, the banking, working with developers and trying to get money to do their projects. The library, you can see the library system that we developed here in this community. So I've just tried to take that and use that as a goal because right now I don't have any employees anymore. Once I sold my family business, I don't have that responsibility, so I have the time to be able to give back.
That's interesting. Yes, I have pretty much a similar question. Can you recall the time of your life when you decided that my life is about contribution? Do you remember this moment?
I would say it was back when I was a county commissioner. Thinking back through my career, my father was also a county commissioner and was involved a lot, and my uncle, and so I had several generations of public service. So when I was young, my dad would come home from a meeting and we would just talk about what happened there. I was still in high school and in middle school. So I guess being exposed to that at the early age, I just wanted to be part of that. And I've never, I've always tried to put my family first and my faith. But I think you can balance that and have personal goals and still be successful. And you're always amazed at what can happen when you least expect it. And so that's what keeps me coming back.
You mentioned the Mount Etna project, and for our listeners, Greg has a satellite photo.
Master plan.
A master plan drawn up on a satellite photo, and in the middle of it, it says Chief, which is right next to Hagerstown Community College. And could you talk a little bit about
Sure.
the Mount Etna project?
Basically,
and he also brought out a bigger plan, a more detailed plan. That's the master plan.
the master plan
Right.
was developed by our engineer, and what we have is about 150 acres of land that will be, now we're talking a 10 to 20 year project. That's how long it will take to build out. But basically, the county wanted to build a road into the back of the college to give it a secondary entrance. So what we did is we donated all the right-of-way to that. But what happens when the road was being built, Chief paid for all the utilities to come in. So the water, the sewer, the electric, the fiber, all that is there for business to come in. We took that concept and we developed it down even a little bit farther. So there could be up to 750,000 square feet of potential development over the next 2 generations or 2 decades. I have spoken through probably 10 or 12 different companies since this project went forward to try and recruit them to bring them in. Anywhere from a company that might only have 20 to 25 employees to a company that has about 500. So we haven't landed anyone yet, but I have offered free land to a company to come in and develop maybe an R&D type of facility. So we want to upgrade what we have in some of these other parks. Instead of just a regular warehouse, we're looking at either cybersecurity, R&D, corporate headquarters, that type of thing. So, and this is all in conjunction with working with the County Economic Development Department. So that is our goal. And the next phase of roads to be built is Professional Boulevard, and this will take you over to Eastern Boulevard across the bridge. So it took 5 years from the time we thought about doing this to planning it, to getting funding for it, to doing the engineering and building it. So it's a long process, and it's taken almost that same amount of time with the Professional Boulevard. So what you see here is this, the magnified version, but this will come over over to Eastern Boulevard there by the Keller Stonebreaker property.
Okay. And for our listeners, the road called Professional Boulevard connects from Eastern Boulevard and goes the whole way to Robinwood Drive. And it crosses, is that Yale Drive?
Yale Drive, yes.
Yale Drive, which connects Mount Etna Road to Hagerstown Community College.
And to Meredith.
And to Meredith.
So we have talked to, like I said, various organizations, and things are in the works, but it takes a lot of time. And like I said before, is you get a company here that wants to have their business, but now you have to make sure that that company has a workforce that can sustain it. And so it's a long process, but that's our goal.
Okay. And this Mount Etna Technology Park, will it just be businesses, commercial, or will there be entertainment, restaurants?
No, there won't be. I guess if there was a company large enough and the employee base gets large enough, you could have maybe a cafeteria in one of the buildings, whether it's a campus style. This is like 70 acres down here to like a medical office that would just have 15 to 20 people in. But there's a walking path the entire length of this for tying the facilities together, and it'll be the same thing over to Eastern Boulevard. So you have either a bike or walking path to try and keep these employees healthy.
That's great.
In the Hagerstown area, what are some things that are within our reach that could bring Hagerstown to the next level? We're looking at some of these projects now, but what do we have that's right there that we're working on?
Well, this is one of them. This is right there. This is every day to where we're marketing this to other communities. You can either look at expanding your commercial base, your accessible base, two ways. Either an existing employer expanding, or bringing in a new employer and building in that. So we're trying to do both, helping, whether it be Meredith, whether it be Volvo, whether it be someone over in the other business parks. If they expand and we can provide them with the proper facility and employees, that's the potential. Because a commercial entity is what pays the bills. When you have a residential community, it costs more to educate one child than what a residential property owner pays in taxes. So you have to have a balance there of what you attract. I think the average cost now is probably $12,000 to $13,000 a year for one student to go through school. So the average property owner clearly does not pay that in their property taxes or income tax. But you need that person to be an employee of one of these businesses. So there's a balance there. And Washington County has done a good job of trying to balance that with expenditures and putting money back into infrastructure to attract different community or different businesses.
That's great.
And are there other projects similar to this, or other things?
Right now, there is another business park out off of Showwater Road that is slated to be more of a warehouse right across there from the airport. So we are not the only player, and we don't want to be the only player. We encourage private development. And years ago, there was no one else. Now there are several other developers, and we will work with them to help them any way we can to succeed. So, it's not just us. It's a whole team or group of people trying to make a difference. Mr. Bowman and Mr. Toss and Mr. Wiles and the Fultons, all of them, they have a vision to try and make things better here in this community, and we want to try and help them that way too.
Is there anything that ties this vision together? They all have a vision, but if they're pulling in different directions, is there a...
No, I don't. We have an asset with the interstate. So you focus on that and what you can and can't bring. I mean, there are certain things that we would never be able, just because of water and sewer capacity, there are certain types of businesses that we cannot attract. But there are other types of business because of the location where we're at, we would definitely attract. So that's what you have to balance, and that's where your plan comes into place. Both the city and the county have strategic plans, and within those strategic plans, they have specific goals on how to address that. And the devil's in the details all the time, but it's a workable plan, and things have changed, over the years to where you can't. You have to keep moving to stay up with things. If not, you're gonna never catch up.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I have a question about Hagerstown World Class. Which of these things are worthy of being promoted as world class that we can go out to the world and say?
To the world?
Among all of these things, and not just developments, but talk about the theater, programs.
I think we have. I mean, it's one of those things where beauty's in the eyes of the beholder. I mean, we have a gem with the Maryland Theater. I mean, our school system is done very well. I mean, there's no one particular entity, because I think if you have just one, then it's easy to lose it or have it go down. If you have all kinds of support, then you don't have to rely on any one particular. If you remember years ago,
I wasn't implying that there was just one. I was saying in the
I
past
think I've
worked.
spoke. Yeah, I've kind of hit on some of those already.
Yeah.
And world class. We want to keep up with everything else that's going on. I will tell you that technology is going faster than what we can keep up with. I mean, at the college, we're always continually updating. I mean, we actually downsized our library because books are not being used anymore. You're getting more into the electronic books and that type of thing. So it's a whole different mindset. You don't need that space for books. Now you have to have data centers, for the students to work at. And, kids in elementary school were carrying iPads in first, second, or third grade to learn. So that's where that thing starts. It starts in many different areas, and I think we're there.
Okay.
You can't stop. You got to keep moving.
Hagerstown's nickname is Hub City. And once upon a time, we were a hub for the railroads. Are we still Hub City, and what are we a hub of these days?
Well, I think the railroads still have a purpose in transporting stuff. I don't think it's nearly as major as what it was before. Our hub city is probably more interstate related than railroad related right now, because of how mobile everyone is. Whether it's the airport, whether it's the interstates, just things have changed in development. We don't have as many companies looking for rail spurs coming off those railroads as what we did in the past. But I think we have a contract with a company that might be using a rail spur, but that's the first one we've had in several years. Most of these companies now are transportation related that come off the interstate. So that is something where we have a hub, but it's more probably interstate related than railroad related.
Thank you very much. And I have one more question. Would you share your message to people, to young generation, to young maybe professionals, young businessmen who are listening to our podcast now? What would be your message to them?
I would say stay involved. If you don't, you won't make a difference, and you can always be a naysayer. But I think if you want to be a leader in the community, you have to step up and be active and participate. We have a group like that in Leadership Washington County, to where they're trying to develop this young leadership, and I try and share my experiences with them so that way they can learn. Volunteer your time on entities that will make a difference in this community or what you feel compassionate about. I mean, it will pass down to the next generation. So,
Definitely.
mhm.
Thank you very much for such
Thank you very
interesting.
much.
Well, thank you for coming in. I appreciate you asking me to do this, and hopefully it will make a positive event with somebody.
Yes,
And
I'm more than
that's our
sure.
hope, too.
And you know, if anyone ever wants to call or contact me, I mean, you have my business card, and I'd be more than glad to speak to those groups or you know, help them out any way I can.